all have existing businesses that you have started and founded? Can I ask how many aspiring entrepreneurs? Oh, you can't go anywhere. Let me know if this inspires you more or if it scares you more. Be careful. We'll circle back on that. I'm a huge believer that community's ability to create an environment that fosters entrepreneurship and cities and communities' ability to create the conditions for talent to flourish are absolutely fundamental and foundational to the future of cities and communities. We've assembled, I think, a really interesting cross-sector of business leaders and entrepreneurs to share their stories. In the room, we also have a number of entrepreneurship resource providers. Can I get a show of hands from folks in the room that are here that provide resources and support to entrepreneurs? Hold those up really high. Take a look around. If you need help, find these people after this conversation. I've also had the privilege of following the work of Cristina Sheppard since her time at Ferndale. Sheppard-Decius. Oh, really? Cristina Sheppard-Decius, write that down. It feels like it flips the alphabet a little bit. Since her work with the community of Ferndale and since coming over to Dearborn, and I'm a huge fan and admirer. I think of leaders in Michigan. Cristina really understands the importance of creating the conditions for talent and what it means to build a coalition of city leadership, really focused on the notion of talent and creating the dynamic vitality place that entrepreneurs want to flourish and that talent wants to be a part of. She's a wonderful thought leader. She's been a great partner of our work, and she's going to lead a really dynamic conversation this evening. Cristina, come on out, and thank you so much for being a part of this.
Thank you, Brian, and you're always so eloquent in introducing me, so I really appreciate that. Thanks to everybody for coming out today. I am not going to say a whole lot about myself right at this moment and what we're working on, but I do want to just kind of segue into that, is that we are working on a collaborative coalition to revitalize and to continue to grow our downtowns. And downtown Dearborn is really an up-and-coming place where more and more entrepreneurs, new businesses are establishing their place, as well as a lot of great long-standing businesses continue to thrive here. And that's really what we have made up in terms of this panel in front of you today. These are folks who are engaged and involved in our efforts to continue to grow our community, and they're very actively involved. But I think that they're also setting the tone for others to follow as to how best to do business in the community and how to continue to foster talent. So starting here on your right, I gotta make sure I'm getting the right side here. We have Sam Abbas, who is a Dearborn native and went to Arizona State University, where he opened his first restaurant, but he decided to move back home and bring Yogurtopia as the first business into the area in 2013, and then in 2015 he opened up Brome Burger and Shakes, which is now named Brome Modern Eatery. Next to him, we have Katie Merritt, who is co-owner of Green Brain Comics. And if you don't know, Green Brain Comics is a comic book specialty shop in downtown East Dearborn. She's been with the company overall for 29 of the total 32 years that business has been in Dearborn. But she started to be one of the co-owners with her husband, Dan Merritt, in 1999. So she started in retailing there and just continues on, right? Never left. And then next to her, we have John Rucinski, who is also a Dearborn resident and graduate of Dearborn High School, as well as Wayne State University. Very locally grown here, which is awesome, and has been brewing beer since 2000. He is with Dearborn Brewing in the downtown West Dearborn, and moved back from Texas in 2000 and started looking at ways to home brew and then bring that to the forefront in the public, which he did in 2015 with his wife, Sheila. And then last, but absolutely not least, we have Wendy Weber, who is a co-owner of Stormy Records. She has been a music lover all of her life, and I don't think that will ever change. She is the epitome of all that there is music, so if you ever have a question, ask her for sure. They are located in downtown East Dearborn and have been in business with her husband, Carl Hultgren, since 1999, correct? Right. So with that, I'm going to first turn it over to them to give each of them an opportunity to introduce themselves a little bit further. But what we want to know first and foremost is, why did you start a business and why Dearborn?
Me first?
Sure.
So I spent a long time, or what I considered a long time, about 4 years working for Cigna Healthcare, and the office environment just wasn't for me. While I somewhat enjoyed it, I thought that entrepreneurialism was the way to go for me. I kind of wanted to be my own boss and wanted to explore a little bit. So started off with Yogurtopia, kind of a limited service restaurant. And, then ventured off into Brome after I got a little bit of experience under my wing. And why Dearborn? Definitely Dearborn because of its diversity and it's home. It's home for me, so it made perfect sense.
Pass it on to, oh, you have yours.
Is this live? So as Cristina mentioned, I did not actually choose to open a business in Dearborn. I bought an existing business that my previous boss had chose to open in Dearborn. And when he opened the business, it was 1985, and East Dearborn was very different looking than it is today. And he chose the district because it was a huge independent retail area. It had multiple record stores and vintage clothing stores and all kinds of other unique little shops in the area, and he thought that would be a comic book store would be a perfect addition to that district. And he was right, as we've been here for 32 years now. When my husband and I purchased the business, after I had been working there for over a dozen years, we chose to stay in Dearborn because we had grown the business to be a destination location, and we definitely didn't want to uproot all of our regular customers who had been coming to our business for that many years. And also, while the district had changed in that amount of time, we still saw the potential of the intimacy of that little district, and we had created friends and family and all kinds of other connections to the area, and thought that we were going to stay in Dearborn because of how much we had already established all these ties with the city and relationships.
I can just go without because I'm used to talking to breweries and dealerships.
But if you can speak into the mic, because we are recording as well.
Oh.
Thank you.
Okay, is that better?
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks.
Boy, where to go from the introduction already? Like Sam said, Dearborn's home. We actually live in the Henry Ford district. Actually grew up in that district when I was going to Dearborn High, and when we came back, my wife and I bought a Ford home and just fell in love with the nightlife and the ability to walk up and down Michigan Avenue. A lot of the places we used to go to on a regular basis would laugh at us because it'd be the middle of a blizzard and we'd be trudging in our ski gear to go watch a Super Bowl at Moose's Martini Pub or someplace like that. So as it evolved to opening the brewery, Dearborn was always the goal, and it's I did a lot of research in the area, and it's funny to even call it research because it basically entailed walking bar to bar and counting taps and seeing what beers were being served and everything like that. But it became obvious fairly quickly that that a microbrewery would be a natural fit, especially with all the Ford engineers that were in the area and everything like that. So it just sort of evolved over time, and here we are today.
Well, I'll try to not make this really long. After loving music my entire life, I was lucky enough to end up with a husband who I not only run the shop with, but also create my art with. And we started as a band in 1993 and then toured all over the United States and Europe. And on a regular basis, because we were already buying records in other cities, we took notes on all the things that we liked about record stores that we visited. I had already been working for record stores. I started at a mall shop and through the years went to smaller and smaller businesses. And in 1999, we decided that it was time to open our own store. One, we wanted to be our own bosses. Two, we felt that the area was lacking in something that we could offer music-wise, and part of that was because of our connection to the music business already. Three, we're really, really crazy about music and wanted to do that all the time. And we picked East Dearborn because it already had a history of interesting small businesses. It had really affordable rents. It's got a lot of character. And it was on the border of the city of Detroit. And because as a used record store, we buy used items from people to sell in the shop, we knew that being on the edge of Detroit, we would get really excellent stock that wasn't going to necessarily come in had we gone to somewhere like Westland or Birmingham. So knowing your audience and knowing where you're going to get the merchandise that's going to come in for you to keep your living going is a really important part of making the decision of where to have your business. And for us, that's why East Dearborn worked.
That's great. So tell us a little bit, and I'm going to open this up now, so anyone take a stab at it first. Tell us a little bit about your steps and processes you took to start your business, either getting through the city processes or things that you looked at. I know you looked at some research, and I think that that's an important part. You know, what other areas did you look at in terms of research?
I'll jump in. The first thing that I did was find the biggest industry possible, and that's food. Everybody loves food. It's something that we can all relate to. We can all kind of join around and enjoy a good meal together. So once I decided on food, I then was looking for a location. So as I was driving up and down Michigan Avenue, and I was fairly familiar considering I grew up here, I found the perfect building, and I noticed that there was a pocket park. And I thought it was such a unique building with the fact that there's this pocket park right next to it. So my next steps were to approach the administration and to see if it's possible for us to open up the side of our building if we were to purchase that building, which at the time, so conveniently it was actually for sale. So as we asked the right questions and dug a little deeper, we found out that it was a possibility, and that's what made that piece of property so unique to us and our concept. It's an open air feel. We wanted people that came into the restaurant, because we know that there's a good portion of the year where we have some gloomy days here. So we want you to be able to come in, enjoy dinner or enjoy lunch while still having that feel that you're still outside. So a ton of windows, ton of doors, and that's why we landed on that piece of property in particular and why we chose the restaurant industry.
John, do you want to maybe expand upon some of the research that you looked at, but also if you could maybe hit upon some of the intricacies with liquor licenses too?
Sure. One of the big things, like I said, we did a lot of research. We also knew that Dearborn had never had a licensed microbrewery. We've, joked around with the mayor a little bit in that, he specifies that it's never had a licensed microbrewery before us because, back during Prohibition, there might have been a few things on Fordson Island that nobody really wants to talk about that weren't entirely legal. But knowing that Dearborn had never had one, I got real familiar with the people in a lot of the zoning offices and that, and we got way out in front of the curve on that because I had a million questions, and I knew they would too. And it really became a back and forth where the city was great, but a lot of the conversations pretty much were almost a script. Hey, what about A, B, and C? And the answer would come back, we're not sure, we have to ask legal, we'll get back to you. And to their credit, they always did, and we got things working. So by the time the actual licensing and everything came about, we had to get like city council buy-off on our microbrewers license. It's a form called local government approval. It was a pretty simple matter of just submitting that to the council, and they put it up to a vote, and it really wasn't contested or anything because they already knew what we were going to be about, and we were going to be a small place that made our own beer. We weren't trying to bring in this giant factory on Michigan Avenue that was going to disrupt traffic and everything like that. So a communication early on, much like Sam said, really kind of set the stage for a smooth opening, and I think that was one of our biggest hits going forward.
Good. And now, Wendy, I know on the contrary, that's kind of a different story. And I think it's a good story to share because I think at times people jump into a business and really don't have always the resources at their fingertips very easily, or who to ask or what to ask. So why don't you go ahead and share a little bit about that?
So my husband and I wanted to open a store. All right, that's great. We're going to do it. And did we contact the city? No. Did we find out if we had to have a business license? No. We knew some guys who were in a small space, and they were running their business out of the back half, and they said, hey, why don't you move in with us? And we said, okay. So we moved in with them. And we opened our store and hadn't asked for any kind of permission from the city. We discovered within the first couple days of being open that there was this horrific roof leak. And I contacted the landlord and said, I need to know, when are you going to come and fix the roof on this space that we're renting? And she said, well, how about when the guys that signed the lease actually pay their rent? Which was the first indication that the people we had moved in with were not really trustworthy. And then as the next several months went on, we discovered that there was a number of illegal things happening in the space, and we immediately started looking for somewhere else to put our store. At which point then I did end up in contact with a really nice lady who was working with the city at the time, who gave me good suggestions. Things like, well, when your new space comes up, you might want to see if the landlord would put in new carpet before you move in, or help you with paying for some of the upgrades. But we definitely did things under the radar, and yes, it got our foot in the door, but we really walked in on a hornet's nest that we were not expecting. So you need to be careful. It's probably wise to talk to someone who works with the city first.
Yes, we're not scary. Come see us. We'll help you as much as we possibly can, right? So, Katie, why don't you tell me and the rest of the group here maybe some of the biggest hurdles that you've had to overcome as a growing business, and how did you overcome those? But really, how are you continuing to, not only be relevant in this industry that has probably been, in some ways, a shrinking industry in terms of number of shops, but also a growing industry in terms of really interest in the.
Right. Well, yeah, our industry as a whole has gone through its ups and downs. In fact, when we bought it, it was at a lull. And they say, buy low, sell high. So one of the biggest challenges we had when we bought it was that we had a really hard time getting financial backing to buy the business because no one saw it as viable because the industry itself, it was in such a lull. And I heard someone mention earlier in the introduction the SBA. The SBA is gold. Talk to the SBA. They will give you so much advice. We got an SBA-backed loan to purchase the business. It requires a lot of extra paperwork, but it was worth it because it allowed us to do it. And then we knew that the industry would rebound. So it did. We were able to pay back the loan and flourish the business and grow the business from there. So financial difficulties, contact the SBA, they have a sub-organization called SCORE, which is the, I don't remember what it stands for, it's Retired Executives is the last two letters of the acronym, and it's basically a lot of retired CEOs that they just spend their time giving advice to new entrepreneurs and helping you along the way. Like if you have a question about financing or what to do in a certain legal situation, they can give you some advice, and it's all free because it's all government backed. Another hurdle, like Wendy had mentioned, is landlords. When you rent a building or always do your research. The first building that we were in, that when we bought the business, which we were already in that building, so I didn't choose it. Yeah, there were roof leak issues, there were maintenance issues that we had a hard time getting a hold of her and this type of stuff. Having a really good relationship with your landlord is key to your business running smoothly. And you're essentially going into business with them. So do a background check, find out whatever properties they own, talk to the people that rent their other properties and see what their opinion is of them. Because that's another hurdle, because once you're in that relationship with them in a 3, 5, 10-year lease, you could be stuck with somebody that is detrimental to your business, to you running your business. Mm-hmm. Let's see. Like you said, we've been growing, spurts and stops, and we've moved our business a couple times along the way to accommodate the growth. And there's always challenges every time you grow. Money is usually the biggest one. But if you have confidence in what you're doing and do your research, you can overcome those hurdles.
I think one thing that I know that you mentioned to me, Katie, was that when you did the Goldman Sachs program, is that you really learned a lot that you could apply to your business. So one, continuing to educate yourself, but really, how did that help you change the dynamics of how you were running your business as well?
Right. So the program that Christina's referring to is the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses Program. And actually, Sam and myself are both alumni of that program. And it's a business growth program where it's an accelerated business course. And every class, you go over a different segment of running a business. And when I decided to buy a business, I had 0 business training at all. We did it, like Wendy said, for the love of what we do. And because I had already been just running a retail shop for so many years, and we just thought, we could do this. And we did, and we made it great. But then we went to this class, and I was just like, wow, there's so many other aspects of running a business that we either aren't utilizing or I hadn't even considered. Having a solid mission statement and having it known publicly and to your staff, how to deal with staff, how to look at your books in a completely different way. Better ways to market, just better connections to the business community as a whole. Were all great advice to not only grow your business, which was the goal of the class, but just to look at your business in a completely different lens. Like I would come back from each class and say, I'm seeing things that I never saw before. I've been here every day for 17 years and never looked at those aspects of my business in that light before, and it really gives you a different perspective once you just, like you said, not stop learning. Keep taking some education, and it doesn't have to be something like an accelerated business class, but even just check out books at the library, take a community college class on business, hire professionals in a part of your business that you're not familiar with. If you're really good at books, great, but if you're not good at marketing, hire a marketer. If you're good at marketing but terrible at money management, hire a bookkeeper. So it really helps you see that, like where your strengths and weaknesses are and where you should seek a professional. Because running a business isn't being a bookkeeper. I mean, it's part of the business, but that's not my job. My job is running the business. My job isn't a full-time accountant.
Right. Great. And both John and Wendy, in terms of the business, the industry that you both are in, it is an extremely competitive business. Can you both address how you are staying in the competition and above the game?
The entire time that we have been in business, we have been completely aware of the fact that we're 3 miles down the street from a huge record store that's been open for 60 years. That is really daunting. If you don't think that what you do is important enough and you don't really love it and you know that you're going to be up against that kind of competition, you might not want to have your own business because it takes more dedication, it takes more time and focus. What we do at Stormy is not fight with them or compete with them. We do our best to work hand in hand with them and send customers back and forth. We each carry pretty different styles of music. We might have the same formats, but I'm not going to bring in all of the same merchandise that they have. I can't buy in that sort of bulk. I can't get those discounts, and therefore I don't want to be competing with that price range. So instead, we have found a way to work with trends. You have to be willing to change a lot. You have to be willing to pay attention to what your customers want and regularly shift to make sure that you are providing what your customers want. And sometimes it's really tough. Sometimes, you know, for our industry, we had a flood in 2014. So 100,000 homes flooded in Metro Detroit. Most people keep their records in the basement. Antique stores have been dealing with the same issue. We had 100,000 homes that just lost all the inventory that they could have brought to us. That's a tough thing. And owning your own business, you have got to be aware of the fact that one chunk of time might be really prosperous and the next chunk of time might be very difficult. So planning some is important, and listening to what it is that your customers want is important.
Yeah, I think this might be the start of a theme you start hearing over and over tonight. But absolutely knowing your local market. The big thing in the brewing industry, there's a big saying about going to your local brewery. All of our keg stickers that are on kegs that go out for distribution have a saying that's been used by pretty much every member of the Brewers Association at one point or another that says, support your local brewery. And so it really does come down to knowing who you're selling to. We very consciously don't chase some of the really big popular styles right now, not because we can't make them or anything like that, but I've got several thousand Ford engineers a mile and a half down Oakwood from me, and when they come out for happy hour, they're not necessarily looking for the quintuple dry hopped, 15% IPA that is all the rage at any given time. They're looking for craft beer, and they're looking for beer that's, say, a step above, your typical, I don't want to name drop here, but, the major macro players that sponsor all the baseball teams and stadiums and things like that.
Yes, don't promote them. Don't promote.
But they, but at the same time, it's important not to be afraid to stand out. If you get a crazy idea, don't be afraid to dedicate a small portion and try something completely off the wall. And the old saying, throw it against the wall and see what sticks. And there's tons of stories about breweries all across the industry that were trying to do things a certain way, and they were all somewhere between doing kind of okay and on the verge of failing when they just decided, you know what, this isn't really working, let's just try this crazy idea. And there's a small brewery out in Grand Rapids called Founders that very famously in the industry, there's a story that goes around that they were several days from missing payroll when they launched their first breakfast stout, which is where their tagline, "Brewed for Us," came from. They figured they had a limited amount of time left. In the time they had left, they were going to brew the beers they wanted to drink, and things took off. So you never know. In our industry in particular, because we produce the product that we sell, and we design the recipe, we create it, we buy the ingredients, and it goes from there. And you never know which one's gonna be the one that just catches a spark and takes off. You can go up and ask the guys at Old Nation. They put together a beer called M43 about a year and a half ago. It's now in the top 5 in the state. So try different things, but know your base customer. You know, it's kind of like the 80-20 rule. 20% of your customers are going to generate 80% of your sales. So make sure you keep that base and never lose touch with it, and then use your other taps or your other resources to kind of explore new revenue streams, new ideas, and just kind of go from there.
I think I've heard over many years is that as a business owner, you know, don't buy for yourself, buy for your customer. And that's definitely true because, you know, not everyone has exactly your taste. It might be why you went into the business, but it's not necessarily what everybody wants from the business. So Sam, you are an anomaly in a lot of ways where you are opening more businesses as we speak. And tell us a little bit about the challenges of having multiple business storefronts, and also I think some of the opportunities with that and how you're growing for that.
So I think what really helped me the most was there was one key thing that I learned in the Goldman Sachs program. And they taught me that in order to successfully grow a business, you have to pull yourself out of the business. And a lot of times what I found myself doing was, you know, mopping the floors and cleaning the bathroom and, you know, doing other things like that that are so heavily involved because I was very particular about how things were done. And I had to pull myself out to really focus on a growth strategy and how I'm going to move forward. So, you know, we've been afforded an opportunity where, you know, Brome has grown to a second location that's currently under construction in downtown Detroit, in the financial district. Some of the challenges, though, with operating multiple storefronts is just the supervision of employees, you know, managing payroll, all the things that you think may come easy really, you know, can be a daunting task. So I slowly had to realize, I slowly had to come to the realization that I wasn't able to do every single task myself. I had to rely on my employees, the team that I put together, and slowly but surely I proved to myself that my team was very capable of actually standing on their own feet and operating the restaurant themselves. So with me taking a couple steps back and letting them kind of do their thing, I realized that, you know, there's a wide array of talents that is out there, and you just have to allow it to kind of come to light.
There we go, back on. Thank you. So I want to now segue into really what's the future hold for Dearborn, and some of the things that we're working on together that we have established as a community. We have 5 key transformational strategies that we are working on to continue to grow and revitalize our downtowns further. Those include walkability, image, cohesive community, millennial appeal, and innovative retail. And I wanted to ask any of you here on the panel, what do you see as opportunities for Dearborn when looking at those strategies, and how can your business not only capitalize on the assets that we have here, but help us to meet those goals and those strategies?
So would I be able to comment on something else really quick?
Sure.
It kind of segues into that, and one of the things that a lot of people, I'm not sure if they realize it or not, but Dearborn is extremely unique, and I didn't learn that until I actually traveled and, you know, lived in other states, and then came back here and also opened stores in other downtown areas in Southeast Michigan. I realized that Dearborn, geographically, I mean, it is the absolute best location in all of Southeast Michigan. Its accessibility to the highways, how unique it is with the fact that we've got, you know, 2 major colleges here. We've got 20,000 students that we can tap into. And, you know, as an entrepreneur, you know, you got to step back and think, you know, who are you? What minds are you trying to form when you're trying to impact consumerism? So, one of the things is if you impact a younger crowd, hopefully they'll stay your customers for the next 10, 15, 20, 30 years. So with our access to that, I think it makes us very, very unique, aside from the major players that we have in town, Ford Motor Company, Carhartt, and other, companies that hopefully are going to be coming to downtown Dearborn. So, Cristina, can you repeat the question, though?
Sure, as best as I can, because I went totally off script of my questions. So what do you see as the opportunities that Dearborn and you as a business can really capitalize on in order to affect these strategies, these 5 key transformational strategies?
Anyone else?
I think one of the things we've really started to see it, especially in the last month or two at the brewery, is as Ford is renovating their campuses and there's the massive construction project going on at the Proving Grounds and the one on Michigan Avenue and that, we get an entirely unheralded large amount of business travelers who will spend weeks on end living out of a hotel in the Dearborn area, and they're always looking for new and interesting places to go and visit, and quite honestly frequent, if they're frequent travelers to the Dearborn area. For crying out loud, we've got one guy at the brewery, he's a Mug Club member. He lives in Iowa, but he's in Dearborn so often that he decided to join the Mug Club at the brewery. Just in the past week, I've just, in passing, because as Sam was alluding to, the brewery's getting to the point where I'm doing less and less of the brewing in the back and the kegging and the things like that, or even being out front. I'm usually shuttling between like the back office and somewhere else. But I've heard people say, I'm in town from Indianapolis, I'm in town from Texas, California. During the hurricanes, a bunch of people had opportunities to come up here. We've had a ton of people from Florida in the brewery lately, and they're not up here as tourists. They're up here as people on business, and they're looking for places to go and do because they don't have a home to go home to during the week while they're up here. So I think that's a huge untapped potential market for the city to really start to look at.
Great. And I know that you're also working on a lot of what I would say is walkability and bikeability programs. So maybe just touch real quickly on some of the things that you do at the brewery.
Yeah, we partnered early on with some people. A lot of our customers and us personally have been big fans of like the slow roll downtown and all of that. And so the first full summer that we were open, we started doing a bike and brew type thing. We've also tried to do like yoga and beer. We call it pints and postures. It appeals to the crowd that we have, the more active lifestyle. Everyone thinks of the beer drinker on the couch, but that's really not the craft beer crowd anymore. And some of these younger guys, I see them sitting at the bar having 2 or 3 IPAs. It's like, how are you still that skinny? I could never do that. But then they go out and they ride their bike 20 miles home, and it becomes pretty clear. But this past year, we started partnering with the Bike Dearborn group, and we run a lot of monthly bike rides out of the brewery. We help sponsor the group. We help promote like their Wednesday night rides a lot of the time, and so we do see a lot of that. We got a small little bike rack installed in the back to help with that. So just things in like with walkability. I paid for frontage on Michigan Avenue when I leased the brewery, and when we chose that spot and we chose Michigan Avenue, there was never a doubt in my mind that the front door was going to be open and people could walk in right off the street. It's kind of a pet peeve of mine, but it just amazes me to no end that some of these places will spend so much money getting a frontage on a major street and then say, oh, you have to enter through the back, which you have to walk like 2.5 blocks around to get to the entrance. So that was a big thing for me.
And I think that, go ahead, Katie.
So the districts have recently added the rental bikes out front, and have you noticed that helps with the bikeability to your business? Do you think people rent bikes to bike to the brewery so they don't have to drive?
I'm not sure. They park them around the corner. The little rack is around the corner off of Oakwood. I'm not sure. But I do see a lot of them around. Like when we're leaving at night, we still see people tooling around the neighborhood on them and all that. So they're definitely getting used, and I think they've definitely had an overall impact. I can't say for certain if it's helped us specifically, but I think it's definitely been great for the area.
Great, great. And I know that in terms of our image and some of the things we're trying to promote to make sure people are aware of is that, you know, we really are a artistic community, and I think that Wendy started a new program not this past summer, but the previous summer, 2016, Tunes at Noon, and maybe, you know, just kind of share a little bit about how you're involved with that and what you're doing.
Being part of the Detroit community as a musician and knowing lots and lots of musicians, the city had some ideas for how can we expand on using our public parks, how can we get more people into the city to enjoy what it is that we have to offer as a whole, and the idea for Tunes at Noon was born. For 6 weeks in the summer, which is the same 6 weeks that Jazz on the Avenue happens. I help to pick a group of artists who come in every Thursday at noon and perform in City Hall Park. It's fun. It's summer and it's hot, but it's fun to get out of work for an hour and see performers that you probably haven't heard of doing really beautiful music in one way or another. It's a nice way to break up the day. And I appreciate the fact that the city is willing to support the arts. In a lot of ways, what I do as a business is very different than the people that I'm on this panel with. I'm hands-on with everything at my business. I'm in control of everything at my business, and I'm very curatorial about what it is that we carry. Part of that is because that's what works for me. And part of that is because of who our customers are and what they expect from our business after 18 years. I am thankful to be near the city of Detroit, Michigan Avenue. There's so many cars. There's so many people that come and go from downtown. And we have a great working relationship with clubs in the city. We do a lot of cross-promotion, which I think for any business is important. If you can find a way to work with like-minded businesses and help each other advertise, that will get you a much wider audience and customer base, which is a big deal. So I like Tunes at Noon because it works well with my business. It's helping me support through the city and through Beaumont local musicians who need it, who can use the exposure, and it's great for people in the area because it gives them a reason to get out and do something different. So I love our arts community. I'm thankful that the city is willing to work with it as much as they do.
Great. And that brings up a really good point in terms of collaborating with other businesses and cross-marketing. But Katie, I think you could probably speak to some of the ways that we are collaborating between districts in our downtowns, but also really some of the other things you're doing in terms of collaborations and cross-marketing with other businesses to get your business out there too.
Next Monday, we also sell board games in addition to comic books, and next Monday we're doing an event with Joe's Top Dog Bar and Restaurant to do a game night. And it was actually Joseph, the owner there, came to us and said, hey, I see you guys do board games. We want to do a board game night. Do you want to work on this project with us? And we were like, absolutely, because like Wendy said, you double your audience. So we're marketing it to our audience, and they're marketing it to their audience, and we're hopefully going to get, double the exposure and create this community collaborative event that brings two different markets together for one thing, and then hopefully we're each going to gain new customers in the process.
Great. And Sam, I know that you're also, you spearhead Dearborn Restaurant Week, which was the first time that we did that last year with great success. And I know that, starting something new is hard, but we are a foodie town, so once the ball got rolling, it was phenomenal. And if you can kind of share some of your experience and your work in that effort.
Well, it was definitely a team effort. I mean, we put a solid team together with the Promotions and Organizations Committee, which she also serves on as well. I think the main purpose of Dearborn Restaurant Week was really to just showcase the diversity within the city. And it's to bring out, people that don't normally frequent Dearborn businesses, to bring them into the city of Dearborn and to show them that, hey, we've got awesome restaurants here. I mean, if I can go on for an hour listing off all of my favorite restaurants, and they just so happen to be in the city of Dearborn. So I think kind of coming together with all of the restaurants, I got an opportunity to meet all of the business owners, to really talk about some of the things that we could benefit from as business owners to kind of increase that traffic throughout the year. But it gave us that 1 week to really kind of brag about everything that we can offer to everybody else. I mean, for so long I hear about people going to downtown Birmingham and downtown Royal Oak for dinner, and that tone is changing. That conversation is slowly changing. It's now becoming, hey, where are we going out in downtown West Dearborn? Where are we going in downtown East Dearborn? I mean, there's just so much to offer, and we've never really taken an opportunity to say, hey, everybody, look at us. Look what we're able to do here. So it was a really exciting event that we put together last year, and we're even more excited for this year's event, which will actually take place in the second week of February in 2018. So really excited about it.
Look for more.
Yeah, so on the note of why Dearborn, I forgot to mention the food. I couldn't leave all this good food. There was no way.
No, absolutely, right? So speaking of which, I think that one of the things that we're kind of painting a picture here is that it really takes creating experiences. And in this day and age, retail just isn't what it used to be back in the old days, right? So I want to kind of go towards Wendy and Katie on this in terms of real solid retail and how that change in the marketplace. How has that made you change what you're doing and how you're trying to attract customers?
So there was this really big construction project, probably in 2004 on Michigan Avenue, and it made it hard for our customers to get to us. And then that winter, the iPod was released, and physical sales of music took a total nosedive. Whether it was a CD or a vinyl LP, people were not coming into the store. Everybody wanted this nifty new device that they could pack 10,000 songs on and take with them on an airplane or wherever. And we saw an immediate terrible effect. So we started doing things in our store such as having bands come into play, having more local artists come in and do art exhibits, having more events so that people were still interested in coming into the store, and then while they were in the store, remember the fact that they used to actually enjoy holding whatever the item was that we are offering to them. Sales definitely changed, but we found a way to continue getting people to come into the store. You have to be willing to modify what you're doing to stay in business.
Exactly. You have to be willing to adapt. And the point that was made earlier about knowing what your customers want. If they don't want what you've been selling all this time, and they, instead of product A, they want product B, you better have product B, or else you're not going to have that traffic anymore. As I mentioned, comics have gone in, ebbs and flows, and we started doing board games to make up for the loss of the comics that no one's paying attention to, or no one's interested. The publishers are making different decisions, and we have to make up that somewhere else. But it's also, you have to make those decisions on what you want to carry. Like, we could go with toys, but we're not interested in selling toys. We don't have any heart in that market. So we're going to go with something that we know that we can still positively promote. So we're not just willy-nilly going to start carrying something that we don't believe in, because you also can't sell a product that you don't have faith in or don't have a personal belief behind. Not necessarily that you want, like you mentioned earlier, don't just sell what you like personally, But it's more, you have to do your research and know your product line and be able to sell it to the customer and be able to explain what it is. And if it's something that you actually have no interest in or no belief in, you're not going to be able to positively sell that to your audience. So find something that you can. And then, just like Wendy said, more events, more other promotions, collaborative promotions with other businesses, different marketing strategies. If print ad isn't working anymore, try a TV ad. If that's not working, a movie theater ad. If you have to be able to reach a different audience if your audience isn't reacting the way you want to. So there's a lot of other strategies that you can go and find new audiences, but paying attention to that core 80-20 and knowing that, if my regulars are not interested in what's coming out right now, I need to find what they are interested in and make sure that I have that in stock so that they're not going elsewhere or worse, not coming back.
Great. So as we look at what's working, what's not working, or maybe what's here and what's not here, I want to look at what are the trends that you might see as potential businesses that are needed here in downtown Dearborn. I want to kind of open that up to all of you.
I would say that we have an entire retail sector that's completely missing in downtown West Dearborn. East Dearborn, while they have, a few stores, West Dearborn completely lacks it. I mean, there's no real clothing stores, custom tailors, I apologize. If there are, there's, not enough of them. I mean, there should be more of them. And I feel like people are kind of afraid to take that risk and come out and do it. And I was talking to a friend the other day, and he was telling me, he's like, "Hey, how come there's no, the old school barber shops? You go in, get a nice shave, and with the old school barber look itself." So, and I said, I'm not entirely sure. I mean, somebody needs to take a risk and come out and actually do it. And why don't you be the one to do it?
And there is, and here's where the cross marketing needs to come into play.
And
if you exist
not
and no one
aware of
knows it, it's not
exactly. So there are, and that's why I apologize. So if there are some of the businesses, and I'm just using some of them as examples, across the street from me. So
drop off some business
I'm sorry,
cards.
guys. So sometimes I'm blinded because I'm so involved in just day-to-day business that I don't take the time to actually look around. But
Something that I think would be very helpful, and I am not yelling at the city. I'm simply saying, especially in West Dearborn, a lot of the rents are difficult to meet. And when you're looking at a situation where you're going to be paying rent and triple net, oftentimes a business who can afford that is going to be someone who is more of potentially a national player. It's certainly not something that my business would have ever been able to accomplish, nor was I interested in that kind of a situation. Making sure that your rent is affordable is a really big deal. Making sure that your landlord is accountable for the building is a really big deal. And that is one of the differences between East Dearborn and West Dearborn, affordability for spaces. So I have felt for a number of years that West Dearborn has incredible opportunities for really cool small spaces, boutique shops, etc., if it was a different affordability price point.
Other thoughts in terms of types of businesses that might be needed that you feel maybe are missing in the marketplace that, maybe one of these budding entrepreneurs could nab and run with?
I'll echo what Sam said as far as sometimes some of us may actually not be the best people in the world to ask because we've kind of got blinders on as far as our market and things like that. But I've definitely heard a lot of the same things about shops and things like that. And it's true, you go to a lot of the real viable downtowns and you do see other trinket shops, craft shops, clothing shops. I once joked in one of the DDA meetings that we'll know Dearborn's truly become a true tourist destination town when you get like a Kilwin's Fudge on the corner of one of the stores or something like that. But there is a lot, and I think that quite possibly something along the lines of that might be the next step with West Dearborn, especially being more nightlife and restaurant driven, something along the lines of a few more custom pastry shops, like Cannoli Pastry just opened up. Maybe you get some sort of like custom taffy shop or candy shop that can kind of mix in maybe like a soda fountain or something, and start building that critical mass where you get to the point where there are so many people walking back and forth that somebody says, yeah, I'm going to put a tailor shop here. I'm going to put, you know, some sort of custom apparel shop or something like that there. And then you truly get to the point where between like Westbourne Market and all the other small shops, it's kind of a one-stop deal where everyone can come and really hit A through Z all in one little area.
And I think a lot of that has to do with the walkability that hasn't existed on Michigan Avenue for some time. And we got so used to seeing doors closed in front. So now we're slowly changing, and you see a lot more of the businesses opening their front doors. I'm personally seeing a ton of business coming through our front door. I mean, it used to be 3%. Now we're probably at 25% of our customers are walking through the front door. And as Ford finishes the development on Michigan Avenue, you're going to see that landscape, you know, go back another 10, 15 feet. And that's going to allow for traffic to kind of slow down a little bit, people to feel a little bit safer walking down Michigan Avenue. And slowly, or I should say organically, you're going to see more, I think, more retail pop up, especially with so many employees that are going to be there and just a lot more traffic and a lot more customers. So I think it'll naturally happen. To identify a specific type of store, that's really difficult because times change, you know, every quarter something new comes up, so.
Try to be the first to do it, right?
I don't want to give away my ideas.
Yeah, right. There's the real answer. Okay, so what do you think are some resources that might be needed for businesses that either do exist here or maybe are that need to exist either in the city or county or statewide that might be helpful for aspiring entrepreneurs?
I know it's in the works, but some type of facade improvement grants. There's a lot of old tired storefronts, ours included, and as financing is usually a huge hurdle in opening a business, starting a business, or even, you know, renting a place when the landlord expects you to do all of the structural or visual improvements. Once you've hit your budget on all your necessities, usually that's the last thing that gets looked at. And I know that it's in the works, and I know that it's a huge, like you said, city, state, county level. Those things would, if you were to tell a new business that we would help you with this level, it would be incentive to come into the district.
Great.
One thing that I think would really help aspiring entrepreneurs is having like a co-op space where it's small square footage. Something that's a little less risky. I mean, we all know that, you know, going into a high rent, you know, in West Dearborn there's a lot of risk there. I mean, you're putting a lot at stake. But if we were to do something where we have multiple storefronts in one building, it allows for some sort of co-op space for small businesses to just test the marketplace. I mean, you could be somebody that makes candles. I mean, yeah, there's a market for it, believe it or not. I mean, if you go to downtown Royal Oak, downtown Birmingham, you're going to see those things. You know, soaps. There's a store that sells strictly olive oil. I mean, yeah, as bizarre as some of these things may seem, there's markets for them. And if people have an opportunity to take on a space with an affordable rent, something that they say, you know what, $500, I can risk that for 6 months, you know, at a time. Let me test out the marketplace. Let me see if I can really make a run at this. And then if so, you know, we can turn it into a business. And one prime example I believe, and I'm not sure if it was a co-op space, but Common Grace Coffee. I mean, they started off in, where did they start
Farmers
off?
Market.
Farmers Market. So they started off in the farmers market. They tested their market. They saw that the reaction was, great. Everybody loved it. And they took their next risk, and now they lease their own space and operate a very viable business. And, I bet you many of us frequent the business as well. So, I mean, that's a prime example of just giving people an entryway, just an opportunity to get in there and really, try it out.
Great. So, and that's a good segue just for a brief second. I do want to introduce a few people in the crowd here today that are business resources in the community. So besides the city of Dearborn and downtown Dearborn itself, which we do have some materials on the table, please feel free to take those. If we do run out of anything, I can always email that to you, and also make it available via our website. But we do have Jacob Albers, who is with the U of M Dearborn. And I'm going to, in a minute here, I'm just going to pass the mic to them so they can kind of share just a few seconds on what they're doing, some of the things that they are starting to provide in terms of resources and things that they have been doing in the community. We also have Jackie Lovejoy, who is with the Dearborn Area Chamber of Commerce, and then Hassan Bazzi, who is with ACCESS. And hopefully I didn't miss anyone. Barry Murray was here earlier from the city, but Barry and I would definitely be ones to contact at the city if you're looking to step in and get into business here in bricks and mortar. So let me pass it over to Jacob first.
Good evening. Thank you for the introduction. I got to come up front. Okay.
After you turn the camera.
Nobody. Okay. You're good. Good evening. I'm Jake Albers with the U of M Dearborn Business Engagement Center. Our office acts as the front door for companies of all sizes to access university resources around talent acquisition, applied research, and other strategic partnerships. My role specifically is to do that work on behalf of the College of Engineering and Computer Science, but I have colleagues who work on behalf of the College of Business, College of Arts, Sciences, and Letters, and the College of Education, Health, and Human Services. For years, we have been working primarily on behalf of larger companies throughout the region. But we've switched gears a little bit. I wouldn't say switch gears, but expanded our portfolio a little bit to try to find ways to support smaller companies and to be more of an active driver of economic development in our region. We have 2 existing programs for small businesses, one of which supports STEM-based internships for companies. It's a grant program that can fund up to $3,500 for the wages for one of those interns, which helps to really level the playing field in terms of competitiveness for smaller companies looking for STEM-based talent. The other involves a state matching grant that can support applied research with the university. Looking into the future, really the big picture item that we're looking at is the creation of a local resource hub for small companies in partnership with stakeholders like the Chamber, the DDA, ACCESS, the city, and the county. That resource hub would be really a place where resource providers from all over the region have a physical space to provide their programming, but we're also thinking about co-op incubator space. So there's still a lot more to come on that front, but it's our commitment that if it's going to happen, it's going to happen in Dearborn. So if anyone has any questions for me, I'll be hanging around.
Hi, I'm Jackie Lovejoy. I'm the president of the Dearborn Area Chamber of Commerce. We're a unique chamber because we're about a 50-50 mix of big business and small business. So to my small businesses, I say, this is your corporate boardroom. If you need help in your business, your corporate anchors are here as fellow chamber members to help you out. To my big business, I say, this is your club. This is your membership. If you want to test new Coke before you burn the old, the classic Coke recipe, this is the environment to do it in. We provide small business education, everything from marketing, SBA events. We partner with our local institutions with, U of M Dearborn and Henry Ford College. And people don't realize we're a seat of college knowledge. We have CMU in Dearborn. Davenport University is a very active chamber member. So if there's resources people are looking for to start their business, besides the DDAs, the city, and I sit on the West DDA board, to know what's going on and to know most of these meetings are open to the public. You don't have to join right away. You can come see what's going on and really get your feet wet and take the temperature. This is probably the most inclusive neighborhood I have ever worked in. Part of my job, I come from 15 years in higher ed. Walking into this community, I was welcomed immediately. It's not a cliquey environment. It is really, you're a stranger but once. So if you're looking for a great place to start a business, I've put people in my car and driven them around the area. And I can connect you with economic development people. It's what we do. And really, my motto has been believe in the cocoon. And boy, are we growing now. So that's the short story. It's a great proposition. It's less than $300 to join the chamber for a year's worth of membership. We do ribbon cuttings. We do publicity for you. There's all sorts of marketing events. So, and chamber members like to do business with chamber members. So that's kind of a built-in club for you. So with that, I'll hand it over to Hassan Bazzi of ACCESS, another great chamber member. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. My name is Hassan Bazzi. I'm the regional director at a nonprofit, community-based nonprofit here in Dearborn. It was founded here in Dearborn and is still headquartered here in Dearborn. We've been around for about 45 years. A little bit of history about our organization. I mean, we provide a wide variety of services, not just business services. So community health, workforce development, social services. We also operate the Arab American National Museum across the street. So in terms of small business development, we offer workshops. So we have two, basically they're boot camps, and it's for any type of business, for entrepreneurs at any stage. So you could be an entrepreneur who's just has an idea about starting a business and you don't know where to start and have never operated a business, or you could be an entrepreneur, business owner who has been operating for many years but has never thought about your business financials or marketing. So that's a 7-week series, 4 hours once a week. Once you graduate from that 7-week series, then you start working one-on-one with one of our small business advisors. So that's all customized one-on-one based on what your needs are and what your business model is. All of that is done here in Dearborn. If you're interested, I will be around and I can give you my contact info. Very low cost to get involved. Most of our services, all of our business advising services are free of charge. We do have a nominal fee for the boot camp, and that's just to make sure that people that sign up are committed and actually show up on the first day. But we never turn anybody away if they can't afford to pay that fee. So if you're interested, I'll be around, just reach out to me. And one of the most important things that we do is that, I mean, I look at us as a connector. There's a lot we do and a lot that we don't do, but we pretty much know the landscape and we can connect you with any of the other resources that are around. And that's it. Thank you for coming.
Thanks, guys. So last question, and then we'll open it up for questions from the audience. Not stand right in front of that, sorry. So one last tidbit of advice that you would give to an aspiring entrepreneur, what would that be?
Do your homework. The SBA, when I first considered starting a business other than buying this business, and I researched the SBA then, there's a checklist. And it said, are you willing to work 50 to 60 hours a week, sometimes more? Are you willing to give up, X amount of money, spare time? Are you in it 100%? Are you in it 110%? Are you in it 150%? Running your own business is a huge personal, financial, social commitment. If you're up to that, if you're like, yes, that's me, then perfect. Do your marketing research, find out who your audience is, do your location research, do your product research, do your homework, and know what you're getting into so that there are no surprises.
I'd have to say that if you're thinking about it, do your homework and then do it. The feeling that you get is second to none once you see something come to fruition. And you may not always see it come to fruition at first. You're going to see your first failure. You won't see success, true success, until you've failed once or twice. And that's okay. You just get right back up and you work at it and you continue to work at it. I mean, I could have, the proudest moment in my life was when I turned 27. I got my first white hair, and it still might be back here. And, you know, I said, you know what, that's a true test to the hard work that I put into the business. And, you know, I could have given up the first time, the second time that I failed, but I decided, you know what, I love it. I love the ups and downs. And, you know, I think to be an entrepreneur, you have to prepare yourself for that. And if you're okay with that, and you feel that, you know, that's something that you can handle, then go for it. And, you know, you're going to rely on your family and your friends, and you're going to love it. And I'm sure you will. And ask questions. That can never hurt.
Sam just mentioned that you'll have ups and downs, and to that I'll add, have and know what your coping mechanism is, because you are going to need it. I tend to be quite sarcastic and fatalistic at times. I remember John Lennon was once asked, you know, how he thought he would die, and he quite prophetically said he'd probably be gunned down from behind by some madman. Sad to say that actually happened, but I will jokingly say that, you know, I'm always looking forward to my next aneurysm or stroke or something like that. And it's just a fatalistic way to blow off steam and just kind of not let the pressure get to you, because whoever told you that, you know, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life, they lied. You will work very, very hard. You will enjoy it, but you will work harder than you ever thought you would, and you will need that coping mechanism at some point.
If you don't love it, why are you going to bother? Because having your own business is going to take all of your time. It's going to take all of your focus. When you wake up in the middle of the night, it's what you're going to think about. So, make the decision. Do you want to work that hard for somebody else, or do you want to do it for yourself? And know that at least you tried, and you looked into it and said, I really love whatever this thing is, and I'm going to try. And if I can make it work, that totally rocks. And if I can't make it work, at least I tried, and then I can go back to working for somebody else. But it really will take over your life. And if you're prepared for that, then you need to do it.
Great. So I want to make sure we thank our panelists, but before we let everyone go, some of you might have had a question or two out in the audience. So if you did and you have a moment to ask this great panel one of your questions before we let them leave the hot seat, let me know and we will pass the mic. We'll start on this side and I'll walk over.
And again, congratulations on your successes and your wonderful presentation. Marketing is it. If I don't have a marketing strategy, I don't know what I'm doing. So I would like to ask you, please, some tips on creating your brand. And it starts with the purpose of your business, and then, and again, a brief phrase, then what's the mission? Now, for example, NASA, them guys, their purpose was to make the unknown known, okay? Their mission was to put a man on the moon. Tell us, please, your purpose for your business, short and sweet, and then what's your immediate mission? What are you accomplishing in the here and now?
My goal is to help people find music that's going to be part of their life, that's going to be with them on a regular basis. I always tell people, I do what I do because music is so important and it really changes people's lives. I don't know that I have a mission statement. I can't say that I've ever thought of my business in the way that you're asking me these questions. Maybe somebody else on the panel has. But my whole thing is, I want to put music in your hands that is going to do something for you, that is going to help make your life better through somehow enhancing your life.
Our purpose when we started out, and it's funny to be asked this right now because we're kind of in a transitional point right now as we enter our third year. Our purpose was to bring local craft beer to Dearborn, and our mission was to do it before anybody else did. And so Dearborn's first microbrewery has actually become our tagline, and it's on our pint glasses, our shirts, and everything. So right now we're kind of like NASA if they're still using "Put a Man on the Moon." Well, been there, done that, got the T-shirt. So we're working on a continuing mission type thing right now. Hey, maybe I should get James Kirk to do like a thing. It's continuing mission. But yeah, it's important to have that, and I think it's something like a mission statement in that I think it's more important in the aspect that that's something that you need to communicate, especially like in my circumstance, to your employees clearly and get them believing in it, because they're the ones that will go out and interact with the customers that we have come in. And if they're believing in our mission statement, they'll live it and breathe it, and it'll rub off. Enthusiasm is infectious, and I'm sure we've all been to a bar or a restaurant where you get a server who could not seem less interested in waiting on you and being there. And it's important for us that we have people that really love good beer and get excited about talking about beer and engaging with the customers who are assumingly as equally enthused about our product as we are, otherwise they wouldn't be in our establishment.
Great. So we got through two of those, and I want to make sure there's still an ear of mystery for the other panelists. I know there was two other hands I think that I saw raised.
Thanks again for all your stories, very, very educational. My question is about online marketing. What, if any, is your experience with any form of online marketing, like social media, maybe apps, SEO, and pluses and minuses?
So it's definitely going to vary from industry to industry. So as far as the restaurant business goes, we build our brand through online, Google AdWords, Facebook sponsored ads, Instagram sponsored ads. But we don't look for an ROI on that. Our ROI is through touching a customer and then that customer talking to another customer or potential customer. You may not be convinced just by seeing a picture of a really nice looking shake, but if your friend comes to you and says, hey, I went to Brome yesterday and I had this amazing banana cream pie shake, you're most likely going to come and frequent the business and at least give us a try the first time. So a lot of people try to, they get frustrated and they think, if we spend a couple $100 on Google AdWords or Yelp, they think that they're going to see an instant ROI, and that's definitely not the case. Marketing is a complete marathon. Anybody that tells you otherwise knows nothing about marketing. Sorry. So if you're going to put that out there, and it's more just to build your brand awareness, getting that name out there. You got to touch people. The old rule was you got to touch them 7 times before they actually come in. I don't think that that's the case. I think you got to continually get in front of people, get on their smart device, on their laptop, through email. I mean, there's multiple ways to touch people, but don't forget print advertising, because every demographic is using a different medium. So there's a crowd that strictly reads the newspaper. I haven't read a newspaper in I don't even know how many years, an actual physical paper newspaper, but we get a return from that. And there's people that come in just by saying, hey, we saw your ad in the newspaper. So it's really just kind of, looking at it as from a holistic approach, and not just, I'm just going to, spend a few bucks on this specific way of advertising or marketing.
Great. And I think one last question, and then we know that you guys have identified the resources in the room, and our panelists are still here. So you'll definitely have an opportunity before we close out to ask your question personally, but we'll have one more from the audience.
How you doing, guys? Thank you for coming here today. Actually, I came about 2005 here to United States, and I've been living here in Dearborn. But I was establishing a barbershop in Hamtramck, and every day driving to Michigan Avenue, going there, I never paid attention to like Dearborn or anything. Just going there, business is good. I started going to school Wayne State. I finished accounting, and about 9 months ago, I started working in Dearborn, Michigan Avenue, and I saw, wow, what I've been doing in Hamtramck all that time. So I started looking for some property or business. There's nothing for sale. So in the end, I got my hand on a land, an empty lot. But for me, as doing in a barber shop or as accounting for giving services, what I could do to shift right now, I'm trying to focus in food. My question to Sam, what I could do from working in an office, environment office, to a business, food industry, how to learn that shift, what to do, what to start from, and
It's funny you say that because I'm actually a CPA, but I thought it's a little boring for me. I like to be talking to people. The best thing that I can tell you is work in it before you try to convince yourself that you like something. And it's okay. I mean, so what? So you pick up a shift as a dishwasher, a line cook. It could be a number of things. It's just to get that experience first and to see, is this really something that you'd want to do? Because one thing in business is you have to learn every role in the business to truly understand what the business is. And if there's one person in that restaurant or in any business that knows more than the owner himself, you're in trouble. You're in big trouble. So you got to really learn it, understand it, and is it something that you're going to be passionate about? Because it's a big shift. And some people called me crazy for going from accounting to the restaurant industry, but hey, it's what I like.
This program tonight was part of the On the Ground program in Metromode Media. At your chair, you had an opportunity to get an invite to one of our open Mondays for the newsroom to be able to tell us your own story, whether it's a story from the neighborhoods, a story of your business, a story of why Dearborn. And as a result of that, those that are hosting the newsroom, I want to invite Jessica and Micah. So Jessica has done an amazing job of getting these panelists here onto the stage, so thank you, Jessica. And Micah, as well as promoting the social media to help get everyone here today. On Mondays, when you come into the newsroom at Joe's Top Dog, and it's from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. for the next 6 weeks. Stop by, visit Jessica and Micah, and tell them your story. Be sure to follow it on Facebook and RSVP and invite your neighbors and friends so that they know. While we close out the night, I want to just make sure that we thank our resource partners here tonight and our panelists. I think you all did a great job, and thank you for participating tonight.